Hello, everybody, and welcome to MinnFAQs, which we're calling this whole thing now. Changed from MinnMax Mondays. This is a chance to answer some questions from the community about what's going on with MinnMax and everything. Oh, hang on. Do we have audio? I'm not seeing levels on this. Hi, everybody. There is audio. Oh, good. Thank you, John Carson, for filling in a very important detail. This is the lovely YouTube interface that does not tell me in a very helpful way. Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. I'm here to answer questions. Let me know what you want to know about Extra Life or MinnMax or anything like that. Thanks for showing up. It's always confusing trying to figure out how many people will tune in on a Monday, at noon, but it seems like a decent time. Where's that hair, Ben, they say, showing off that handsome new do. Ta-da, bald head. Thanks to a generous donor during Extra Life this weekend. It's very tempting to always wear a hat. So I'll have to get used to that. But it's weird, it's really convenient to go bald for a little bit here once a year, because it's just bizarre that maybe I'm a wild narcissist. But you don't realize that every time you see yourself in a mirror, there's a part of you, for me, maybe it's like 2% of my brain that's reserved for, as my hair looks stupid. And it's such a relief just to, every time you see a mirror, just realize oh yeah, there's no reason to worry. Nothing can change on my head at this point. Let's see. Questions. Did Leo screw me on that first auction where he said starting bid $200? That is a very specific question, and I don't remember what that one was exactly. Oreo Mega, do you agree the hair bug bowl was the grossest act ever done for charity? I'm sure something in the history of giving for charity has been grosser. Beaten Down Brian on Twitter, he responded when I tweeted out pictures of the bug bowl, which the archive from Game Informer will be up hopefully within the next couple of days here. But when I shared that archive or the pictures, Beaten Down Brian was like, wait, I thought the whole theme this year was you're going to be really nice to everybody. And that was the idea. And then it just went off the rails really quick. But still, we raised at least 1,000, maybe 1,500 just for giving each other hugs. So I think the whole Paragon Renegade thing was a success overall. Hello, JV. Just because people would donate to see the Cork family hug, or for Leo and myself to hug while eating a cookie, lady and tramping a cookie, I should say. So I think that worked overall. But yeah, it is just that weird thing of what are we doing for charity when it gets gross and it gets to the bug bowl levels? And it really made me laugh that I think it was Cork who was talking into the mic towards the end. He's like, hey, Gillette Children's Specialty Healthcare, they don't ask how we got the money. They just get the check. They just see the number and they're good. But they don't say wait a minute, were you guys doing some nasty stuff in order to get this? So that's nice. It is a close shave. Yeah, hopefully it's even. It's weird because I shaved it off at home for my hair here, and then just throughout the day kept finding other patches yesterday of oh, okay, got to take one more pass because I feel something weird on the top of my head. John Carson says it's cold out. It was snowing an hour or two ago. That's true. I was walking home from a coffee shop, and then I was outside as the rain turned into snow, and it was really cool. Lazy by name, how long was the cleanup for Extra Life, and when did you actually go home, and how long was the well-deserved sleep for Extra Life? Good questions. So the cleanup, it's faster than you think, and you think that you would just collapse right afterwards, but not really. You're just so pumped up from just the adrenaline of streaming for so long. And so let's see. We probably left. So the stream ended around 9:45. I probably was home by a little after 11. It's just moving tables and cleaning up a little bit. The interns were a great help, Alex and Nick. And so they tore down the pie room or the kill room and wrapped up all the plastic there and stuff. And then, that's basically it. The tough thing then is then there's like auction bundles all around the floors of Game Informer, and so it's just trying to like make those as contained as possible, because that's like almost where the real race begins. And so hopefully Alex and Nick and some folks at Game Informer will be on top of that for actually boxing that stuff up and shipping it off, because it's going to end up being, God, there are probably over 100 auctions. And so boxing that stuff off and just logistics and figuring out what the addresses are. And some people put in a PO box as the address, and that becomes a hassle for shipping big boxes too, and it keeps bouncing back. And so that is where the challenge lies. And then how was the sleep was the question for after Extra Life. It's tricky. So I got home, I set my alarm for 4 hours. So I got 4 hours of sleep, woke up, went about my day in a daze, and then went to bed at like 10, and then slept a good night's sleep. And then waking up this morning, it's just that weird feeling of getting out of bed and your entire body aches. And I don't know if it's from exhaustion or actual like physically just from running around so much during Extra Life, because it's a lot. Like just thinking about how much I was just jumping around in a costume and stuff like that. Like it's a workout. There's a reason that I have to constantly eat pizza and chips and drink coffee. Let's see. Thanks everybody for asking questions. This is good. Greg Flaming Queso Griffith Hansen, how do you not lose your voice by the end of Extra Life? At the end of a 25-hour stream, you still sounded good. Thank you. There was no secret. I lost my voice 3 years ago. And it was fascinating because it was like, I think the year before that or 2 years before that, Tim Turry lost his voice on the second Ghost Pepper. And remember, Andy McNamara kept texting me saying, tell Tim to go home. He can't talk. But he's a trooper, and I couldn't tell him what to do. And so I'm always scared that I'm going to lose my voice, because at one time I did, it really sucked. Because you just constantly want to keep talking, but then you start Googling it, and it's like, yeah, actually you can do some real damage to your vocal cords if you continue talking while your voice is basically gone. And I think I was a little bit sick, but I was also a little bit sick this year, so I was worried that my voice was going for sure. And it's just screaming, I think, will blow out your voice. And I was screaming a certain amount, but then like the karaoke stuff I was worried about, like if somebody would have given me some Offspring music or something like that, that could have been disastrous and I would have lost my voice. But yeah, I'm amazed that I kept it. It was a little bit raspy by the end, but I thought for sure that it was going to go. I can just feel the meter in my soul. Let's see. A super short shave feels great, says Vertebreaker. Yeah, that is correct. It's very, very satisfying, except it's weird when I have my my wool cap and trying to pull it down over my head, because it's just like Velcro, and it was like, it just feels so gross. Whose idea was it to raid Andy's attic for Extra Life? What was the process of choosing what to put up for auction? That was Andy's idea. He, at some point, I think he talked to us, or he was just tweeting about his t-shirts. I forget, but he was talking about how he had a bunch of old gaming t-shirts and he was going to bring them to Goodwill, which is insane. And so, yeah, we convinced him to let us look through them and auction stuff off for Extra Life. And so he brought in 7 tubs, and these tubs were like huge, like near bathtub style or size plastic tubs that he brought in, filled with t-shirts and bags and sweaters and stuff. And so that was it 2 weeks ago or whatever? I would just stay late and just sort through those tubs, and just it was a treasure hunt. It was so much fun. Whereas just every single t-shirt I picked up, I had no idea what it was going to be. I didn't even know what some of those shirts were. I wasn't familiar with the games, but then you'd pick up ones like, oh, here's an original shirt for Symphony of the Night, or here's an old Nintendo thing. It's like, it was just the easiest scavenger hunt or like historical dig of all time, of just slowly going through all those t-shirts and stuff. And so that was an absolute blast, and really generous of Andy to let us go through all that stuff. And he was kind of embarrassed, like, no one wants these old shirts, but he has that weird low self-esteem problem. The t-shirts worked well overall. It was nice that we could have some standalone t-shirts that people would still bid on. But every once in a while, when people weren't into the t-shirts, it was frustrating, because it's like, God, I know this audience appreciates the gaming history, but I wish that like the specific communities knew about this. You know, like it's a hassle, and it was frustrating trying to line stuff up. But just like, oh man, if we could have found like the number one Sega Saturn community to let them know about that Sega Saturn jacket, like that price would have been probably higher for charity. Or like, I remember we had the Naughty Dog bundle, the first Naughty Dog bundle, where it was 4 albums, like the entire Uncharted soundtrack on separate albums, thanks to I Am 8-Bit, and that was like 300, I think was the bid, something like that. And then we put in the first T-shirt, the Naughty Dog T-shirt, which is a T-shirt that doesn't exist anywhere. It's from like Naughty Dog in 1995. I thought it was just this incredible old ugly ass Naughty Dog T-shirt design, and the number did not budge for the bid. I was like, oh, that is a bad sign, because these old Naughty Dog T-shirts, I think, are some of the coolest weird historical artifacts we have, and the number didn't budge for that one. But then there are others where it was just the T-shirts and stuff like that, and those changed the numbers. Because that's the weird thing about those auctions, is just people, I think, want specific things, and at a certain point, you're just losing out on potential money for charity by separating stuff, by bundling stuff. So it's like, okay, here's like 14 amazing objects. Well, we can raise this price more if we throw 2 more in there. It's like, no, it's not the case. Or like the poster scenario where, okay, we have 1 poster for the Outer Worlds, the Game Informer cover, and people are like, okay, $200 going to charity. And then it's like, okay, what if we put in 4 more Game Informer posters? And it's like, $225. It's like, what the? All right, I guess people want their one specific thing, and everything else, take it or leave it. John Carson, I think licking a clam pie off the floor would have been way worse. Yeah, at some point I mentioned, I don't know if Leo put that in the UI and stuff, but at some point I did mention that I would lick that clam pie lick the clam pie off the floor for $5,000. But realistically, what it was is, if people donated $5,000 to charity, I would just puke on the internet. Like, there's no way that licking a clam pie off a floor would not have made me puke. It's just a lock. And so then the question becomes, how much would somebody have to donate to charity for you to lick a clam pie and then puke on the internet and have to look at that GIF probably for at least the next year? And $5,000 was my number. Katrina Wexelman, what's your favorite and least favorite part about planning for Extra Life? My favorite part is making the auction bundles, because it's just the ultimate gaming history trivia of trying to sort out what goes with what. And it feels like you're just making stockings or something, where it's like, oh, this can go with this. And then you run over and it's all laid out. And it's like, okay, we'll place that there. We'll place this here. What T-shirt does this belong to? How can we rearrange these things? At a certain point, it's like, what is this? Trying to get creative with it, where it's like, okay, we have a bunch of anime crap. And then, oh, I know, we have Walking Dead, Clementine's hat, and backpack. If we put those together, then we can reframe it and call it the Kimberly Wallace bundle. So it's almost like little marketing lessons, right? Where it's like, okay, we have a bunch of streaming tech. We have Divinity Original Sin 2 Special Edition. We have some Dawn of War Special Editions. Like, that's a nothing package. Well, it's just a confusing package, I should say. But then it's like, if we call it the Dan Tack bundle, then maybe people would be more into it. So that's the most fun part, is just trying to reframe and group up those bundles. My least favorite part about Extra Life this year, it was bugging people at Game Informer after I left, for like that week after I left before Extra Life. That felt crappy, because I know they're all really busy at Game Informer and working remotely, and just like jumping into Slack and being like, hey, can we start tweeting this stuff out? Because I didn't have the login stuff for Extra Life. For Game Informer on social. And so it's like, hey, can somebody please tweet out the fact that we have these old Naughty Dog T-shirts, please? And everyone's like, hey, we're busy, man. We're busy, because people are incredibly busy at Game Informer right now. And it's like, yeah, I understand that. But I mean, this is for charity. Hopefully this will stand the test of time. This is really important. I know you want to get the news story up, but like, come on. And so trying to just like be a pest from the outside and bug these people and trying to nail down whose responsibility it was when I had zero authority in any way. That was my least favorite part. That was stressful, but everybody was a good sport, and we eventually got it out there. Let's see. James Smith says, moments like Joe giving Shay a massage and the cookie hug were definitely highlights. Yeah, that was very funny. the massage thing. I wanted to go more extreme. I wanted to go like foot massage, really go all out with those massages for charity. But just a simple long shoulder rub from Joe to Shay. I'm glad people felt like that was worth it. Because there's only the one massage, I guess, that entire time. Oh my gosh. Thanks everybody for leaving questions. Adam W. Oh, you said it was $50 after Leo said 200 in the chat. Oh, the From Software bundle. I'm proud to have Flub my first ever time bidding. Oh, I see. Yeah, that was tricky to get on the same page with the interns and Leo, but what the starting bid was. And again, for some of those, like you kind of give the preamble and explain what the bundle is and wait for numbers to pop up. And if by the end of you explaining the bundle and no one has bid, then it just becomes, oh, is this garbage? Does nobody want this whatsoever? So it's like $50 is the starting bid. And then there are even times where that wouldn't work. And so it's like, do we just bundle this bundle with another bundle later on? But we always just stuck with it and got it out there because it was a nice benchmark where basically any Game Informer poster that we would auction off standalone would go for about 200. And so every time we had a bundle that didn't hit 200, it was just like, are we wasting our time? Like we could be auctioning off a poster right now and raise more money for charity. And so trying to get those bundles to clear the 200 mark was a dividing line in my mind. Flaming Queso, can we expect future MinnMax Game Informer team-ups every Extra Life? That's a good question. Who knows what next year will look like for anybody? But I wouldn't mind it. Yeah, I think there's an interesting moment after Extra Life while we were cleaning up where Joe Juba said something about like, oh, we should have just called that like the Game Informer cross MinnMax Extra Life stream. I was like, oh yeah. I think I just still feel weird about that. And I'm sure, people like Game Informer do as well about like promoting this other entity at this point with MinnMax. And so I didn't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable since I saw it as kind of my call for leaving Game Informer when I did to found MinnMax, which put them in a tough spot. And so I didn't want to make it even worse, I think, by relabeling the Game Informer stream. But it'd be nice in the future if we do feel more confident about that to actually like make it a full MinnMax cross Game Informer kind of like branded Extra Life thing. And then maybe we could even like stream it from MinnMax's channels as well. But yeah, I mean, like I explained last week, when Extra Life is just some of the most fun you can have throughout the year. It's exhausting, but like it's just such a blast. I can't imagine saying no to doing it, or like maybe we do a standalone MinnMax thing. Obviously we lose out on like a lot of the industry connections and just the general social network that Game Informer's built up for so long, which I think is where a lot of those huge donors are coming from. I'd imagine, I don't know what a MinnMax specific charity drive could raise, but I'd be curious to check it out in the future. Jeff Cork, sorry if you answered this already, but are you planning to Extra Life it up at MinnMax? That's 2 N's next year. Yes, I guess that's kind of what I just answered. I don't know. I don't know if we would do a separate thing. I like the reunion aspect, but it was something that was bugging me a little bit at the time. And then especially in retrospect, thinking about it is like, it's weird to focus too much on an event that should be all about charity, to focus too much on like Game Informer and MinnMax, and the fact that folks were laid off a couple months ago. It's like, let's just keep it all positive and focus on the charity. But it was just a little bit of a weird thing where it's just like, we'll cut back to the replay set camera, like the gameplay camera. And then it's just like, oh, and then here's Andy McNamara sitting next to JV Gwaltney. And it's just like not acknowledging it or not making a bigger deal out of like, look at this. This is crazy that everybody's back. And so in retrospect, I think it would have been more fun to have like a big discussion about that, or even to make it more of like more of an event, I guess, of like, hey, look at this. We could play the Chicago Bulls intro music, and then JV Gwaltney and Suriel and Kyle and all those folks could like come back through the door. Just the idea that like, oh, it's crazy that everybody's getting back together. I felt like it was just kind of like this, we'll assume the community knows how special this is, that these two people are technically sitting next to each other, and move on from there. Alex and Nick were unsung heroes, says Beaten Down Brian. Yeah, that's true. They both got to be on camera a little bit, but I know they both like being on camera. And so I hope they were happy. Those are the Game Informer interns who did an amazing job. Most years, interns will be there for a little bit, but there's always a point, I think, where it's just like everybody needs a break. Like I need to just not look at a screen for a couple of hours here and just go maybe take a quick nap or something like that. And I kept asking them throughout the night, and they're all like, no, we're good. We'll keep rolling. So yeah, hats off to them. That was absurd. There's a certain point towards the end of the stream where we were like, we have not that much time left and so many auctions. Let's just roll with this and pump out as many auctions as we can. And then I was looking to my left, and the floor was just covered in the bundles that we had auctioned off. And I could see Nick and Alex running around in the booth. And so it was like, they were the ones to be like, hey, we got to slow this down a little bit, just because it's easy to bang a gavel and say, all right, next auction. But like, they are trying to figure out the logistics and messaging the people and filling out our spreadsheet to figure out where we're sending this stuff to. And just so we don't lose track of all this stuff. Because if you lose track of that, then what? You scrub back through the archive of the stream and try and find these people's exact names and then try and find them on Extra Life. It's just a mess. And so trying to stay organized there is a real challenge. And they did a really good job with it. James Smith, looking forward to all the Andy clones popping up around the globe thanks to his DNA being shipped all over. Yeah, it's basically going to be Gemini Man 2. David Clapp says, I fell asleep about 4 a.m. on the stream, and now I see you with a lot less hair. Yeah, somebody donated. I wish I could remember exactly who donated $1,000 for me to get the haircut. Is it Jay something? I forget. But yeah, that's fun. And there's a part of me that kind of thinks it's fun to have your head shaved. It's always interesting. And so once you put that on the table, it's crazy. Like, cause it has a huge impact on your day-to-day life is going bald. And when just, you see that twinkle in Leo's eye, and it's like, we got a big donation here. And he comes in over the mic. It's such a fun moment of tension. It's like, what am I going to have to see somebody else do, or what's going to happen to my head and realistically to my personal life now? Like, it just could be anything. That's the fun part of Extra Life, I think. Tom Tyler says, what's your favorite piece of gaming memorabilia you personally own? Gaming memorabilia I personally own. Own is a tough one. I got, you can kind of see it, the Japanese version of Perfect Dark behind me here. I got that last time I was in Japan. That was pretty exciting. I have when I left Game Informer, I grabbed the posters by my desk. And so one of them was the Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, Game Informer poster, which I had above my desk for so long because I love that game. And so I grabbed that. And then also I grabbed the Metal Gear Solid 2 custom art that was an old cover of Game Informer as well. I was like, I'm just going to say that this one's mine, because normally people like take the posters that for the cover stories that they write, like for the people that were let go and stuff, or people when they leave, they'll grab the posters for the cover stories that they wrote. But because I never wrote a cover story, it's like, well, what posters can I lay claim to? And it's like, all right, this was above my desk for long enough. I feel ownership over this, I guess. Adam W., I was the only one to bid on the Naughty Dog shirts, and I'm not even a huge Naughty Dog fan. Adam, why did you bid on that then? I'd love to know. Vertebreaker, I definitely bet I missed out on auctions I would have bid on simply because I didn't watch all 24 hours. Yeah, that's a stressful thing too, because you have so many amazing things to auction off, and so you try and hit them in prime time. But when you're watching like the YouTube numbers, it's like YouTube stream alone maybe maxed out at 800 people or something, but in the middle of the night, it's around 400 or something. But I think a lot of those people, they must just be passively watching, because there's not that many people in the chat. And there's not that many people bidding. And so then it's just a challenge of like, do we auction this off when it's going to go for pennies on the dollar? Because there's not that many viewers right now. In the morning, it picked up again. But, there's stuff like, there was a late night auction for a signed copy of Kingdom Hearts 3 by Nomura and the other leads on Kingdom Hearts 3. And I think it barely climbed to $200. And that blew my mind. I'm like, people love Kingdom Hearts. People love Nomura. Here's a signed copy of Kingdom Hearts 3. 200 is what we're getting for this. And then it'd be like, hey, here's a Game Informer poster from in the back. And it's like, oh, 350. And it's like, oh, all right. I love it. It's just bizarre trying to access those specific sweet spots for people. Let's see. Why don't you guys, Jawar Hello, who I think won something really big. I remember seeing your donation for something huge, Jawar Hello, saying, why don't you guys put up a schedule of what auction bundles are going to be at what time? If the community knew exactly when something was going to be auctioned, you might get more consistent bids. Jawar Hello, you're absolutely right. And that's the stressful part of planning this, is how many do we track? Because we had 100, I think by the end we had like 129 auction bundles, something like that. And so I tried to map out the big ones, and that was part of the social push, is trying to say, okay, at this time, we're going to be auctioning off this Naughty Dog thing, this Insomniac thing. And sadly, like, what gets tough is because we link that in some ways to the content. Like, okay, we're playing Last of Us, so we'll auction off the Naughty Dog stuff during the Last of Us segment. But then things shift around because of the late start, the schedule changes. And so then it's like, well, do you disconnect the auction from the perfect time? But we've already communicated that. And so everything is connected in a confusing way. But definitely that's something that we tried. I think we did a better job of last year. And this year it was just hectic on so many fronts. And so we didn't do the best job of mapping out exactly when these auction bundles were going. But if you map that out, then you also need to have pictures of everything. And trying to take pictures of 129 different auction bundles is something that nobody had time for, just because things are so busy over at Game Informer. And so that's definitely an area to grow in the future. I completely agree. Chris Cochin, this is crazy down the road, but do you think there will be a MinnMAQs Extra Life event next year? Yeah, not sure. Who knows what next year looks like? We'll figure it out. Night Pepper, how many hours do you think you spent on prep for Extra Life? That's tricky. Having all of Andy's shirts come in made all of those auction bundles so much easier, because we were collecting stuff throughout the year, but it was like, I think this might be a lighter load for auctioning stuff off this year. And then his shirts came in and it was like, oh my God. And so that was just a gift, but it also meant some more time, but also it meant that we had to reach out to fewer people, because that was usually a lot of just emails, was reaching out to people in the industry. I reached out to several, trying to get very specific things to auction off. And then the stressful part was, and then my Game Informer email went down when I left. And I don't think an auto reply has been set up yet, thanks to GameStop. So I appreciate that. And so it's like, maybe that person did get back and they were willing to donate something for the auctions, and the world will never know because that email is dead, which is very sad. But overall time, I don't know. That's tough to say. It was, in the weeks before leaving, it was a fair amount of late nights of just planning that stuff out. Dan Willie, in your Extra Life history, have you ever been tempted to bid for a bundle yourself? Yeah, for sure. The Final Fantasy VII one, I was tempted to bid on this year. And then that was so confusing because it was like a Final Fantasy VII t-shirt and name tag and all this old Squaresoft stuff. And I was looking at the top bids, and then normally the Game Informer chat or like user would jump in there and say what the current top bid is for people in the bid war. But I kept seeing it jump in and just say a number and not say top bids. I was like, what is going on here? And then the conclusion was that Leo was in the booth bidding on it, because Leo really wanted that stupid Final Fantasy VII polo that says no fear on it. And he ended up, I think, donating $350 to get that no fear t-shirt, which is amazingly generous of him, and just hilarious that he has very little to zero affection for Final Fantasy. He just thought it was a stupid t-shirt and he wanted to wear the stupid t-shirt, which then, like, the idea, it just becomes so silly on top of silly. The idea of Leo eating that bug bowl out of Ben Reese's hair while wearing a no fear Final Fantasy VII polo from 1997 is, in retrospect, the only way that could have gone down. Let's see. Any bundle in particular would have loved to have owned. Yeah, the Final Fantasy VII one was big. Let's see. Trying to remember. Even simple stuff like that Blasto t-shirt that Bob Buell got for $100 out of the gate. That would have been really fun to own. Posters, I think, would be great just to hang up in the house. There was one we didn't get to, which was Disney themed. And it's kind of a loose, weak theme, but it was a box of Andy McNamara's Disney Infinity toys. He probably had like 30 Disney Infinity toys in there. And then along with a jacket from Junction Point, like Warren Spector's studio that made Epic Mickey and stuff. And that was a fun one that we didn't get to because we're out of time. And then also looking at, it's like, I don't know if people are going to bid more than $200 for these Disney Infinity toys. And then at that point, just do a poster instead. But on my way out the door, I did end up grabbing that Junction Point jacket as a tip to myself. So please don't tell anybody. Lazy by Name says maybe the schedule would shift and change so much that it would become really outdated really fast. That's exactly it in terms of communicating what's auctioned when. But I think we can do it and just say, like, F it. It doesn't need to be connected to what we're playing. But this auction will absolutely happen at this time. But again, then it's just, we have a spreadsheet listing everything that's in that bundle, but trying to communicate that to the world is a mess because it'll say, you know, old Naughty Dog t-shirt. And it's like, well, people need a picture of that to understand what it is and why they want it. Flaming Queso, hello. Did you realize that the Game Informer community is extremely generous? Kind of funny, raised close to the same amount of money for Extra Life, and they had 5 times the amount of normal people streaming. Yeah, the Game Informer community is really generous. I tune in every once in a while to other people's Extra live streams, and I'm shocked that more people don't have big ticket items. Like, you know, maybe that's you can see it as a downside to our Extra live streams, or sorry, Game Informer's Extra live streams, is just that idea that people always get something for their money visually or auctions. So very few people will just like, here's $20 for charity. But you watch any other live stream for Extra Life, and that's all people are doing is like, hey, we're going to play, like, you know, Rock or Giant Bomb, for example, last year. So we're going to play Beatles Rock Band. Alex Navarro is going to play, what did he play it for, like 10 hours or 5 hours, something just absurd. He's just drumming. And he's like, hey, donate when you can. And they raised a lot of money, and it's really impressive. But at the same time, it's just like, those are just basic vanilla donations, and we don't do those. And I'm amazed that other people don't do bigger things like, hey, novelty gross stuff. I don't understand why the entire internet isn't eating bug bowls, I guess is my point. No, but it's just like, it blows my mind that more people don't do charity auctions and stuff like that. And maybe also don't tell anybody. Like, I don't know if there's a legal downside to doing charity auctions. We've never gotten in trouble for it, so we just keep doing it. It seems to work out well. But I remember I was at the Pokemon World Championships. I was hanging out with some GameSpot people, and at some point mentioned like charity auctions. And I remember they're like, oh, that's a good idea. Maybe we should do that this year. And then I don't think they did. And so, yeah, I cannot recommend charity auctions enough as a big way to get a lot of money. Because that's like, last year after Extra Life, we made a pie chart showing what people were donating for, so to try and understand it better and make more of it for this year. And it was like, I think a majority of the money came from like hats and haircuts and bugs or ghost peppers of previous years, like those types of like big novelty things where you have an impact on the stream. That was a majority of the pie chart. And then auctions were the slightly smaller slice of that pie. And so the idea of cutting those two out and just going purely on generosity, that sounds so hard. But yes, I do think other sites should do more of that stuff. But yes, at the same time, also the Game Informer community is very generous. But I'm glad that they feel like they're getting something out of it. Sure. Hello. What is the process for reaching out to developers to get items to auction? Is it something you guys do throughout the year or in the months leading to Extra Life? I think this year was the best year we ever had for remembering Extra Life from day one. Like Sekiro was our cover story around the time of Extra Life last year. And then we were there and we got those bags of t-shirts and stuff. It's like, okay, here's great Extra Life options. Or, you know, when we visit Mortal Kombat, like for the Mortal Kombat 11 cover story, and we visit NetherRealm, then it's like, okay, we got to have Ed Boon sign this stuff during the rapid fire so that we can auction it off for charity during Extra Life this year. And so I think it was more in the forefront of our minds about, while visiting studios, be like, let's get this thing for Extra Life right now, because reaching out, especially around this time of year when a lot of developers are in crunch or shipping their game, the idea that they're going to take the time to sign a bunch of posters, just, it's a lot to ask for. So we did a better job this year, throughout the year, kind of building up that pile to the point that our closet that we had all this stuff in was just overflowing. And so normally the process is reaching out, through PR people and just saying like, hey, do you think the God of War team would be willing to sign these posters? And they'll say, yeah, we'll see. And then some people get back and some people don't. Jawar, hello. Even a loose schedule has some flexibility. Yeah, I agree, Jawar. Let's see. Subject to change on the auction items. Yeah, that's an easy way to do it. James Smith, is that all of the Game Informer 25th anniversary posters? Are they gone now, or there's some spares for next year? That is a great question. In Game Informer's storage, where we keep all those posters, I think there might be 2 25th anniversary posters left. It is definitely down there. And maybe if we run out, it can get to the point where we can see if we can print more. But I don't know what that process is like. I don't even know where those posters come from to begin with. There are just a secret here. Oh, I don't know if you can hear a train coming through my house. That's nice. Yeah, I think the most we have for the posters in the back room is we have the Spider-Man poster with Super Metroid on the other side, which is just the best combo possible. And we have so many of those. And so it's so nice to know that, like, as a backup, if all these auctions are failing, we can whip out another Spider-Man Super Metroid poster. Let's see. Edgar Vasquez says, aha, I found the chat. Yes, that's true. Welcome. The Game Informer bundles, says Katrina, are always my favorite during Extra Life. I hope you include MinnMAQs merch bundles next year. That'd be fun. Hopefully, yeah, by that time, yeah, we have more merch, and that's a good idea. I didn't think of that. J-Ban was the person who donated for my haircut, says Being Dumb Brian. Thank you. John Carson, hello. You've been Extra Life, friend of the show. With MinnMAQs starting up in the last quarter of the year, is the plan with the Great Goatee Hunt to try to catch up with this year's releases or focus on games that are out around that week? Great question. So Great Goatee Hunt are streams, group streams every Tuesday. The idea is to play newer games that are out and then weigh whether those are considered for Game of the Year. Obviously, with MinnMAQs launching towards the end of the year, that does leave the door open. It'll be really fun, I think, for 2020 to, from the beginning of the year, keep track of all this stuff and have the Great Goatee Hunt streams kind of be more of an exhaustive look at the Goatee contenders throughout the year. But it's interesting, yeah, whenever I go to the MinnMAQs Discord and ask what people would like for the streams, it's usually like Sekiro, Kingdom Hearts 3, all those were thrown in there. And so when we have new games, I'd probably prefer to make the poll for the $10 supporters based on those newer options. But as everybody knows, like, things slow down towards the end of November for game releases. And so at that point, I think it would be fun with the Great Goatee Hunt to put Sekiro on there, put some of the games from earlier in the year on there that are probably going to be in the Game of the Year contention. So it's a little bit of both, I guess, John. But eventually, yeah, we want it to be kind of current stuff. But in this year, we're probably going to go back at some point. But like, I just realized, like, oh, Planet Zoo comes out Tuesday. So I'm really excited about putting that as a poll. I hope people take it. And it's also, this ties into a lot larger discussion, but it's like, oh, how much pressure is on us to keep up with current releases? Like, especially thinking about the MinnMAQs show, that's always, that was the emphasis and still is the emphasis for the Game Informer show, is like every week the new releases will come in with Game Informer's take. And I feel like that mold is something that I'm used to. And so it'll take a while before I'm out of that mold, I guess, for the MinnMAQs show podcast. But it's that tricky thing where it's like, well, I don't own Luigi's Mansion 3. Do I just need to buy every new release then every single week with Patreon funds or with my own money just so that we can stay current and talk about stuff like Luigi's Mansion? Or are we better off just going for the most interesting conversation and kind of, if it's a new game, it happens to be a new game. If we want to have an interesting conversation about a game that came out 3 years ago, we can do that. So there's a lot to figure out there. Edgar Vasquez, I was thinking, for the fans of MinnMAQs, what about tuners? Oh, and then he has multiple spellings of tuners, as in two Ners. Tuners. For a name for the community. That's not bad. I feel less bad about not coming up with a great name for the community. Because first of all, it'd be weird to like shove it down the community's throat. But thinking about it, nothing popped for me. And then even the Discord, the fact that everybody has 400 different ideas for what that name could be. That's like, okay, I'm glad that wasn't missing something obvious. Tuners isn't bad. Somebody just suggested repeatedly, like, just go with the obvious, everybody. Just call them MinnMAQsers. But I don't know. For some reason, that makes me think, and this is the problem with calling the site MinnMax, is that just makes me think that they're min-maxing games, and it's like, well, that's not really what we're going for. And so, yeah, I like minis or maxis, or I saw one person liked minxes. I think it's kind of fun, but tuners is not terrible. Adam W says getting the shirts was more about having something tied to Game Informer than Naughty Dog. That's more what I'm going with when I see him. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, for bidding on those Naughty Dog shirts. Yeah, especially like connected to like Andy's history. I think that's really cool. And it's tricky to see the numbers move for the bids when you say this T-shirt was in Andy McNamara's collection for 25 years. Because it's like, some people are into that, some people really aren't. But it was nice to see, yeah, the numbers shoot up for the Game Informer specific things. Because I think maybe just as an outlet, Game Informer has too low self-esteem. But I think that's always like weird for some people to lean too much into that. Like one of the most uncomfortable bundles I learned was like the Matt Burt's desk bundle or my desk bundle, or even like we auctioned off the big board from the Game Informer show. Those types of things I thought were kind of fun and interesting, but then it was and personal and a little bit, it felt very navel gazy. But at the same time, it was nice that people did bid for them and we got money for charity for that stuff. But then also at the same time, I didn't expect people to be sad when they saw that, which was a mistake on my part. But like the first one we did was the Matt Burt's desk bundle. And there were a lot of people in the chat like, this is really bumming me the hell out. The idea that like, hey, Matt Burt's is gone. Here's everything on his desk. It feels morbid. I thought it was a nice way to get money based on just all that stuff in his office that was sitting there. And I guess that ties into that question from a while ago, or talking point from a while ago about whether or not, like how much during that stream we should have talked about the state of Game Informer or the layoffs versus just focusing on charity. And that was maybe too much of a reminder of the layoffs. And some people were like, oh God, this is sad. But thank you for bidding all that stuff. Let's see. Jawar Hello says, I won the most important item, the big board. Thank you. Yeah, that was amazing because that was something that, you know, a fair amount of people in Game Informer were like, that's stupid. That big board is dumb. I don't want to do this. Maybe I'm just thinking of one person in particular. But then like knowing that cheap piece of balsa wood or whatever the hell it is, cork board, I should say, that ended up getting hundreds of dollars for charity. It's like, yes, that's perfect. That's beautiful. Travis says, when Leo did the Bug Bowl, I was terrified he was going to get a mouthful of hair. Yeah, I thought he'd have like one long strand that would come up with him or something. It's amazing that he dodged that hair. William Garcia, how long does it take you to recover from doing Extra Life? Staying up that long while having to run around hosting must take insane amounts of energy. I guess it does take insane amounts of energy, but at the same time, you don't realize it because there's so much adrenaline and excitement in the room. And it's like, when I was at my lowest point, which is maybe when we were streaming Final Fantasy VII or like the segments before that, like that 4 a.m. window, stuff like that, I was pretty tired. But then I just kept remembering all it would take for me to bounce back in a big way was if somebody donated for something big to happen. If it was like, hey, it's pie time, like you can't be tired when there's a pie about to be thrown into your face, especially if it's covered in bugs or you're shaving somebody's head. Like it's so fun for your own level of energy to be tied into the generosity of the community, but that's really how it works. Or like, you know, you can't be tired when you're auctioning off something that you know is gaming history and that people are willing to donate hundreds for. It's really impressive. How long does it take to recover? I'm feeling okay now. Like woke up this morning again, you know, and then like I said, just I'm sore physically and my voice is a little bit raspy, but it's not bad. So I'd imagine it won't be too long before I'm fine. Let's see. Flaming Queso. Ben, did you know about the Blizzard GI cover story? Was that the last cover story you'll be privy to? Is that a weird feeling that you'll no longer be in the know about Game Informer cover stories? That is a huge question. Yes, that's a meaty one. Let's dive into it. So did I know about the Blizzard cover story? Yes, absolutely. Those things are planned out, which is important to remember. In this case, you know, quite a bit in advance. So that was on the radar for a very long time. And so I knew about it. And then obviously when, you know, as people called it, the Blizzard issue, which is a funny way of framing it, when that blew up with Hong Kong, that was a weird spot. And, it's not like I quit because of that or anything, but it's just bizarre timing. And so, yeah, that's a Game Informer discussion. Was that the last cover story you'll be privy to? No, I can't say anything. I probably could, but I won't. It's not professional to reveal what their future cover stories are. But yeah, I know the next one, and I'm pretty sure I know the one after that. And so that'll be really interesting when Game Informer is beyond my vision of their future. Like I know their roadmap for a little bit, but I don't know it for that long. So once I start seeing covers that surprise me, I mean, that hasn't happened for 9 years, and so that'll be really fun. I'm excited to see what they come up with in the future, what games they're revealing or taking a deep dive into, all that stuff. That's going to be really exciting. And there's stuff like, with Blizzard, I didn't want to know anything because I don't like knowing things that the community doesn't like. And there's a decent amount of that, obviously, at Game Informer. It's like, oh, I know that this game's going to be revealed. And now somebody wrote in about it on the podcast about, do you think this game exists? And it's like, ugh, I won't lie, but it's just easy to be like, yeah, if that game did exist, maybe it would look like this, or just not answer that question. And so dancing around that stuff and trying to be honest with the community was always a little bit of a dance. And so there's some stuff like with Blizzard and the cover story there where I didn't want to know anything. They'd be talking about in the office about Diablo 4, Overwatch 2. And if it was like in the bullpen where the discussion was happening and I would hear a thing or two, it's like, okay, there we go. But outside of that, I didn't really want any details. I wanted to be on the outside just so I wouldn't accidentally leak stuff. I think with Diablo 4, I just really wanted to know what perspective is this in, like, because there was a Kotaku article that was talking about how they're experimenting with like a Dark Souls style camera. And so I want to know if it was that. But outside of that, I'm like, I don't want to know anything. I don't want to know anything. And so I watched the BlizzCon reveal and learned some stuff. It's crazy to like learn things from Reiner's Twitter account where he was tweeting about just like the connections between Overwatch 1 and 2. And I hadn't finished watching the Blizzard live stream at that point. So he was tweeting all this stuff just about the same PvP pool. And I was like, what? I had no idea about any of that stuff. So I didn't read the cover story or anything like that. Yes. And in regards to other stuff, there's also like, before I left, I heard about like trips or features and stuff like that are coming, games that aren't, I think just maybe one in particular that isn't announced yet. And that's definitely a case of like, I don't want to know anything about this. I don't want to know more than this studio is making a game. It's like, I don't want to know anything about it. I want to be as blind as the community. So yes, it's a weird feeling to not be in the know, but it'll be exciting to be more honest for that reason. Beaten on Brian says, Alex from Giant Bomb Drum for 24 hours straight. Yeah, that's crazy. And so maybe like that is the equivalent of a bug bowl. That is its own stunt in and of itself. And so people are donating to charity because of that. Absolutely. Adam W., how do you guys feel when donations come with extra instructions or requests? I wasn't sure how it would go down when I asked Leo to put on a Sonic mask and feed Kyle a claim decay, but it was perfect. Yeah, that stuff's awesome. Like as long as we feel like it's worth the money and it's doable, that's fine. It's a little bit tricky when editors aren't up for certain things. Like I wouldn't eat a bug. And so it's like, I hope that I communicate that enough because I'm very picky when it comes to eating. So I could not do it. I was willing to take the bug sucker though. But, and so that's the part where it gets stressful is if somebody donates and like invents their own thing or has a specific request that's just like, hey, we don't want to bum the community out, but like, I'm not going to do that. And so that gets a little bit stressful. But in terms of like other things, like, yeah, put the Sonic mask on for feeding the claim decay. Like that was awesome. That was so funny to see that. And so anything that makes the stream more fun, I'm all for those as long as it's not absurd. James Smith, are you going to be putting MinnMAQs related stuff aside for the next year, just in case you decide to do something for Extra Life next year? MinnMAQs related stuff aside for the next year, just in case you decide to do something. I don't know exactly what you mean. Oh, like the equivalent of like going on cover story trips and getting merch and stuff or like signed things? Maybe. Yeah, I'll keep it in mind if there's something that makes sense for Extra Life. Like, for example, something I regret with Game Informer was since I printed out all the emails and all my notes every week for the podcast, I regret not saving all those throughout the year. Because even though it would be a crazy thing to ship, like shipping like a gigantic tome of every note from the Game Informer show from the last year, I think would have been really fun with like all the scribbles and swear words and edits and time codes and stuff written on there. And so instead we just like included the last show's notes in that desk bundle. And so that was fun. Loving the Agent 47 look. Oh, damn it. I guess you're right. Beating Down Brian, you could always put the name or the back burner, put the name on the back burner for a while. Something might just come along naturally. Yeah, that's true. Oh, for naming the community. Yeah, I think something will pop up naturally. I think you're totally right. James Smith says, Leo ending with a strand of Reeves' hair in his mouth would have been a better Strand game than Death Stranding. Interesting take. Chris Cochran? I had to close this out and get back to it for a bit when I reopen a Jeff Goldblum ad, which seems pretty appropriate. Yeah, that's nice. The Jeff Goldblum show. I guess I'll watch it. I guess I'll try and get Disney Plus after all, or just steal the password from somebody else. It's weird to me. I feel like even though I love Jeff Goldblum and have a deep personal relationship with Jeff Goldblum, I just feel like he is 3 seconds away from his big Me Too movement or moment. And like, I don't know anything, but like, he seems kind of like a creepy guy. And so the fact that like Disney is just hitching its wagon to him for this Disney Plus show is like, well, they must have done their private investigation work and found out that no disasters are going to be popping up. So game on. But that shocked me. Let's see. Lazy by name. I'm currently hour 5 into a 5-hour drive to Liverpool for work. How did you handle travel during cover stories? I love travel. The only thing I didn't like about travel was I wish I did more of it by myself. Like flying to studios for cover story trips and stuff with a group of people was great. And I think like some of the deepest bonding at Game Informer happens when you're traveling across the world with people and sleeping in the same hotel room as people and every meal is with those people. Like you really get to know them. But at the same time, like anytime I would get to travel by myself for work, it's like, oh my God, I don't have to wait for anybody at the airport. I can just go in, I can listen to my earbuds. I can go eat at a restaurant by myself. I love that stuff. I thought it was really fun. And so I love traveling. I love flying. I am not scared of flying. I was for sure when I was a kid, and then Game Informer just beat that out of me. Plus, I'm a sucker for like frequent flyer miles. So every time I travel for trips, I get those personal frequent flyer miles. So that was always exciting, is to see that number build up. And so, yes, I loved traveling for work. David Clapp, loved Tim's donation for Blinded by the Light and wanted to say how much I appreciate all the work you put into Extra Life. Oh, thank you, Dave. Thank you for watching and donating. I'm trying to remember what you won this year. I think it was a Black Ops 4 bundle. That was a good one. And David Clapp, I'm still stunned. I don't know, for sure last year he missed some of the stream. And so we went back and watched all 25 hours of the archive of this as if it was like a TV show, but like specifically watching those auctions after they happen in the archive. That seems so boring to me, but that's amazing that you watched all that stuff. Clap says, do you know when the archive will be up so I can watch what I missed? There we go. I don't know. It takes a while to process in YouTube's back end. And so I know Leo made it private for that. I think there's also, he wanted to tweak something at some point. And so I'm not sure when Game Informer is going to put up that archive, but it's nice if you go to Game Informer's Twitch channel and then look at the clips section. That's like a great way to see like a highlight reel of everything. Beaten Down Brian says, I'm picky about eating, even though I licked gravy off the floor. Hey, look, for a price, baby. Flaming Queso, can the patrons buy you a printer so you can take paper notes on the MinnMAQs podcast? Yeah, I saw some people talking about that, having like a goal on Patreon to be a printer. I don't know. Because honestly, during the deepest dive discussion for Outer Worlds, having the ability to Apple F and search for keywords was really awesome. Because I don't know if you remember like the old game clubs, if you watch the video version of that, like papers were fanned out in front of me. I had to have, like 40 some pages of notes with little like, I would have all the notes printed out. And then for the comment, I'd also have like a 1 or 2 word summation so that I could find it. So someone's talking about the writing of the opening scene, then I can scan the notes and remember like, okay, this block of text, if it boiled down to one word, it'd be writing. And so that would help me out. But now it's just like, oh, Apple F writing, Apple F whatever, because I've read those hundreds of comments for those so much. Night Pepper, a discussion on Disney Plus content like The Mandalorian would be fun. I agree. Literally last night, I was texting a friend because they're very good and very smart and funny. And at some point, I was like, well, yeah, what do you think your specialties are? Like, when would you want to come on and record some content? And they're like, well, I'm really into Star Wars and I'm really caught up on all like expanded universe Star Wars stuff. It's like, oh, Mandalorian. Like, let's talk about Mandalorian for sure. Maybe that'll be a bonus thing or just, a spoiler cast, something like that. Gennaro Gonzalez, how bad was watching Ben eat a whole mouthful of worms? Leo ate the mouthful of worms. Did Reeves eat the worms? No, he did. I think I was out of the room for that. Maybe I was cleaning up after a pie or something, but I think I just caught the tail end of that. So I'll have to go back and watch the archive of that myself. From what I remember, I don't think I saw the full thing. But yeah, that was bad. That was bad. Chris says Jeff Goldblum definitely has got some not great stuff tied to his name. I haven't looked into it too much, but I assume there's something, man. Adam W., who originally suggested posting classic replays up on YouTube? I think that was me. I think that came about. I think, I got the idea from the community, but Classic Replays and Game Informer's YouTube channel, it was like after the layoffs, when I knew I was going, which was pretty short after the layoffs, then it was just like, well, who knows what the future holds? We pay for, Game Informer pays for the Brightcove video player, which is how everything's hosted on the site. And so if in the future, God forbid, anything ever happened to Game Informer, those payments would stop and those videos would be dead in the archive. And so I think, as far as I can tell, and so YouTube, they're safe, but there's still a lot of videos that aren't up on Game Informer's YouTube channel. So then it was like, hey, I'm going to go out the door and eventually leave Game Informer. I want to make sure that those videos are being saved for the community. And the only way to do it was to transfer them manually over to YouTube. And so Leo tackled that and went through and found every video that wasn't on YouTube, which I thought would be, I don't know, like 12. And I think, is it 45? Something like that. So those replays are continuing to trickle out as classic replays. And then hopefully people aren't too confused about that. I didn't want to see those comments about like, why is this in 480p, which is the highest resolution we have for the archive, which is just ripping it from the other video player. And so Leo actually up-resed all of those old replays to 1080. Up-resed. I mean, literally brought it into Premiere and went to scale and just so that no one would complain about the lack of high definition content on the YouTube channel, even though technically it is still low, but it's a cheat. And so, yeah, we're confused or didn't want the community to be confused by these old replays popping up. So hopefully we made it clear by calling it classic replay and in the description saying it was recorded back in 2010. But I love seeing those. I think it's really fun just to see you hear the old voices and see the old games. And oh boy, that quality can be rough. Hear like, how Dan Reichert talked when he was first making game content. It's just pretty different from his bombastic, more expressive self now over at Giant Bomb. And so I'm waiting for when I came on board, which was late 2010. And so right now, I think the replay that went up, the classic replay, is StarCraft 64. And I forget exactly when that date is. But at some point, we're going to start hitting the replays that I'm at least in the background of. And that's going to be more of a trip down memory lane for me. So I'm very excited about that. Let's see. James Smith, the auctions were some of the most fun to watch, even though I couldn't afford to bid on anything. I felt like I was watching telemarketing. Oh, good. Jawar, hello. Now that all the work for Extra Life is done, can we expect more one-off videos from MinnMAQs like the Jacob Geller interview or the short news vid? Anything new you want to announce to us? That's a great question. That is the number one question in my brain. And so last week I felt good about the amount of MinnMAQs content because we release content every day of the week, which is exciting. And I saw some people like, I can't keep up with all this. And it's like, okay, that's good to note. Because I started to get a little bit worried about what we're committing to, what's the schedule look like, but then also, am I not trying to overextend myself and just simple things like, is there time in my schedule to play games? Because at some point my tank is going to hit empty on games and I'll need time at some point in my schedule to play all those. But like the last week has been nuts. I mean, I was working all weekend and stuff, just on Extra Life and MinnMAQ stuff. And there's a lot of just emails to send and things to take care of as a company. And so hopefully now this week, I'll have a better sense of what the roadmap looks like, how much content we're locking in. This week, my plan is to start nailing down exclusive shows, tabletop shows, Min Snack, stuff like that. Because it was like, first week, let's just do a standard thing, focus on Extra Life as well. And now it's like, this is the first real full MinnMAQs week. But the reason I hesitate a little bit, but it's the first real MinnMAQs week, but also with the qualifier of, I want to see what this week feels like as far as workload goes, as far as ability to consume content, to refill my entertainment tank. And so, yes, we're going to talk about more content. And in terms of one-offs, yeah, actually, even just yesterday, I was texting with somebody who might come in for a one-off, which I think will be kind of fun. It's just kind of, and here's a vague hint, I guess, but like this person has a very particular skill set. And it's interesting because it's like, well, they want to do something with MinnMAQs, which is awesome. Do we take advantage of that skill set and do something in both of our wheelhouses that's more custom? Or is it like, I think what the community would want is just kind of like a long discussion with this person talking about their career and maybe their history at Game Informer, stuff like that. And so it's like, well, let's just do that. I think that will be like less time on your part for something and then also more fun for the community. But hopefully we'll make more custom one-off stuff in the future. Edgar Vasquez, do you guys plan on doing any non-video game content like shows, movies, music? Yes. Yes, we do. We'll definitely have. The easy answer is like spoiler casts for movies, TV shows, probably thrown in there as well. But that's like a very obvious natural place for MinnMAQs to expand, is like starting with games, but reach out to other content. Yes, so that's definitely in the plans. So I look forward to seeing those comments of stick to games. I think that won't happen. This community is amazing. And that's something I should mention too. Like having the Patreon as like any sort of gate for the community, I am just stunned by the positivity. You guys are just the best. The Discord is just the best tone, but just having, the most hardcore supporters and people who really get what we're trying to do at Game Informer, like build a new community. It's just so pure and so good. I don't see those comments, which I'd always see on the Game Informer YouTube channel, just like, if you guys, you don't understand Call of Duty, blah, talking about keep your politics out of our games, blah, 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 blah. Or just like these thousands of haters, like the Pokemon comments were brutal, right? And just like losing that entire aspect of the community was amazing. And now all that's left is people that are like, hey, you guys are human beings. We understand you're going to have some opinions every once in a while that I'll disagree with. And look forward to talking about games and having a positive place to talk about games along with other gamers. It's like, yeah, that's all we're going for here. And so the positivity, even just like the thumbs up, thumbs down ratio on the YouTube videos, like, oh my God, it's so nice not to be blasting out to the wider internet, but just focusing on nice people here. William Garcia, I would donate my Alexa Dot so you guys can play those weird audio games like Jurassic Park. Thank you. I can't ask you to do that, though. We get a new audio device if we wanted to play more audio games in the future. I still want to do audio versions of old text adventures. Hopefully that's something we can do at MinnMAQs, because like doing the dumb Alexa games was really funny, but like, would it work with a good game? Like I've always wanted to play Douglas Adams's Bureaucracy, a text adventure. I've never played it. And so having a British person come in and narrate that, and we just play it like it'd almost feel like an audio D&D session or just like an audio let's play. I think that'd be so fun. James Smith, can I get my Patreon updates via MinnFAQs? No, you cannot. Oreo Mega, are you going to have a regular streaming schedule for games other than the Great Goatee Hunt? That is a great question. Right now we're at one stream a week. With kind of in the same way that we did like the Jacob Geller bonus thing last week. I could definitely see throwing in more bonus streams. Even like last week, I was on the fence about like, do we do a Halloween stream? It'd be possible, but first week, let's take it easy so we don't set too many expectations of what every week's going to look like. But I think we'll probably have more one-off streams in the future for sure. Adam W., I'm going to go tune into Surreal stream. Absolutely, please do it. Barry Bumfroyd, have you thought about doing a long lunch stream that would act as a Patreon drive? Oh, launch stream. We have not. We're so happy and overwhelmed by like the base level of support from MinnFAQs that definitely is something that I've put off probably more than I should. Of just like, oh, at some point we should probably try and reach a wider community or try and expand this awesome pool of folks like in the Discord and stuff. And so that type of like launch drive is something I haven't considered too much, but hopefully this week. James Smith says, see you, Adam. Also see you, Adam. Chris says, are you guys going to pre-record a bunch of stuff so you can take time off during end of December, but still have content roll out? Great question. That is something that I'm starting to think about at this point. I'm sure there'll be some things there. It's also like I'm going to be in Seattle between Christmas and New Year's. And so in my mind, it's like, hey, I'll bring some recording equipment. And if there are awesome people in Seattle, which I know for a fact there are, that would want to record some stuff for MinnFAQs, like I'll still create content during that. Now, I can't promise that. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but that's the way I'm thinking of that trip at least. But yeah, I'm sure some things will be pre-recorded and rolled out during that week there. Oreo Mega, how do you feel about the MinnFAQs puns? Because we love them. I like them because there's also good ideas. Like the name of this show, MinnFAQs, came out from that. And it's like, yeah, let's do it. James Smith says a lunch stream sounds good too. Yeah, you're right. Speaking of which, I'm getting hungry and my food has been sitting in the kitchen for a while. So I should probably wrap up this episode of MinnFAQs. Trying to ballpark these to be an hour in the future. So thank you so much for all the questions. If you're in the road and do an audio podcast with people in Seattle, that works, says Lynn Garcia. Yeah, I think that'd be really fun. So I'd like to do stuff like that. Take MinnFAQs on the road for the first time. Okay, thank you so much for your great questions about Extra Life and MinnFAQs. There's a ton of stuff to dive into. Like when we posted for questions for the MinnFAQs show for the podcast, it was amazing the amount of responses that we got. But it was interesting because a lot of the questions were super specific. Like there was one where it's like, what's your strategy for working from home but not being driven insane? Like, or just very specific things where it's like, this seems more like a MinnFAQs question. So like seeing those types of things come into the normal podcast. We'll obviously talk about MinnFAQs and stuff on the podcast, but so many of those were like, God, I wish that person was a $20 supporter so they could jump into the stream and ask this because it's so particular that I'd love to answer it here because this is the place for very particular questions. Sorry, one last one. Vertebreaker. Do you think the critical reception of Death Stranding, with a lot of the word being that people should experience it for themselves, will help or hurt the sales of the game? That's a great question. That seems like one. That's the opposite of what I just said, which is a great one for the MinnFAQs show this week. I'm staying pretty pure on Death Stranding opinions. Like I haven't read a lot of reviews, or actually I haven't read any reviews. I've just heard discussions, from industry insiders type of thing. And so like I want to listen to Dan Reichert's thoughts on the Beastcast about it, but I don't want to do that until after I have that pure experience of just actually interrogating Surreal to try and understand what the game's going to be like and trying to figure out whether or not I will enjoy it. Thank you for the questions again, everybody. We'll be back next Monday with MinnFAQs for this awesome group. And that's going to be at noon Central, I guess we'll go for. Also, just a heads up, I talked about it in the MinnFAQs channel on Discord for the $20 supporters. But since there's a lot of info here that I think a lot of people will find useful, I hope you guys don't mind if the following day I put up the audio for people that are at the $5 support level. That'll be the plan, just to get this info out there. And in the future, I still want to do viewing parties. Although at this pace, we have so many questions, I don't know if we need to, but I still think it'd be fun to do a viewing party for YouTube videos with everybody here. And so hopefully there's still, it feels like you're supporting for a reason other than just MinnFAQs in general, and you're getting your answers for your burning questions. And everyone's cool and nice about sharing the audio. So it's nice. Again, this community is the best. No one's going to be very selfish with that stuff. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow with a live stream, with the group stream. I think Kyle's busy tomorrow, but hopefully Surreal and Jeffem will be here during the day, and we'll be streaming out some new game for the Great Goatee Hunt. I'll be putting up that poll for $10 supporters to vote on what we're actually playing, hopefully pretty soon here. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.